our board meeting part 1, where we talk about some of the accomplishments that we've had over the past year. We'll go ahead and jump in. I know we're starting a couple minutes late, so we definitely want to pay homage to our roots. A lot of us volunteered at Standing Rock, and that was an encampment movement that saw quite a few challenges related to public health and medical issues and infrastructure. You'll have to forgive my very talkative dog. There's a mailman outside. But even with a lot of expert volunteers and with a lot of funding available, it was difficult to overcome some of those challenges that we saw at Standing Rock. And it became, I think, very apparent that an organization was needed to sort of think of these things in advance and supply nonviolent activists with tools they can use to manage their safety and their health in ways that will make their movements more sustainable. And that is the sort of void that Frontline has sought to fill over this last year. So thank you everyone for joining, and we're going to go ahead and dive in and talk about some of the things that we've accomplished. Certainly there's been a lot of work behind the scenes. When we first got started, we had an interim board, which was a group of volunteers from Standing Rock, and they were tasked with laying that initial infrastructure for the organization. So we went ahead and wrote our bylaws and we voted on them. That's usually the first step you have to take when you make a nonprofit. We set up a website. We set up our social media accounts. We did some branding work. We wrote a blog publication that's called Pulse that's available on our website. We incorporated our nonprofit into 2 states. We're headquartered in West Virginia. We're also incorporated in Ohio. And then we were able to hold formal board elections in July of this year, and we formed our executive committee. That's going to be Leisha Sterling is our president, Robin Chancer is our vice president, Nina Giardinelli is our treasurer, and me, Duck Bardis, I'm your secretary. And so all of us, along with Bree Gorman and Lisa Ling and our director of field operations and communications, Joel Preston Smith, were able to file for tax exempt status, which was awarded to our organization in August. And now we're conducting this first of hopefully many annual meetings. And we can go ahead and move on to some of the stuff we've been able to do in the public eye. Which is publish a series of guidelines on our website that are available to the public. So any nonviolent resistance group that is in need of these things is able to view them and download them and implement them at their will. So we have crisis intervention guidelines. We have guidelines written for medics who are working in hostile environments. We have medical guidelines for treating pepper spray or eye irritants. We've got some suggestions for a medic kit for street medics who are out in the field, supporting protesters and trying to make sure everyone stays safe. We have a list of equipment that would be useful for those purposes. We have guidelines that focus on the most practical ways to triage in mass casualty incidences. We've got siege movement public health guidelines that we're tweaking, but are on the way to being finished. So again, those are all available on the website. Folks can use them for whatever they want. And these were all collaborative measures. They were not, written by one author. These were endeavors that took a lot of research, that took a lot of teamwork with experts in those fields. And everything that was written as a guideline for a medical practice or a medical situation was done so under the guidance of medical professionals with those vetted certificates to make sure that they're valid and correct and most up to date. We also went to a handful of conferences, and I'm going to let our president, Leisha Sterling, talk a little bit more about those. Are you there, Alicia? Did we lose Leisha?
Sorry, are you there, Alicia? I'm here.
You're here. Can you hear us okay?
I can hear you now. You just disappeared for just a moment.
Okay, great. Well, we're ready to talk about the conferences that we've attended if you want to jump in there.
Sure. So in November of 2017, Nina and Atta shared frontline info at a conference that was in San Rafael, California. Went to the Chaos Communication Congress, which is a large hacker conference for the Chaos Communication Club in Berlin. She was there in December of 2017 and shared frontline info there. Diani Barreto and Lisa Ling shared frontline info at the Austin. And this summer, in July, Smith and I went to New York to the Hope Conference, which is the conference of the 2600 magazine. We presented a talk called Assholes and Infiltrators, played a game and talked about how to know the difference between, you know, bad actors who are just being normal humans and people that are actually trying to cause real damage on purpose. And we connected that with Frontline Wellness and the mental health work that we do together. So, Robin, would you like to talk about the partnerships that we've formed with OSU?
Yes, definitely. We are building a partnership with Ohio State University and their College of Social Work to try to match an intern. Thought being that we could place an intern in us, help us create a whistleblower health and activist support group or some kind of support system for whistleblowers. We're aware of the need for more support for the whistleblower community because they are often so isolated under so much stress. So we want to try to use that partnership to create more of an outreach program for that population. And then we're forming more partnerships, which I think Duck knows a little bit more about.
Yeah, a couple months ago, we were connected with Barrett Brown, who has launched a really exciting project called the Pursuance Project. And this is, as I understand it, it's sort of a social networking and task management. It has those two components, and it's completely encrypted. So it allows activists and organizers to make connections and accomplish tasks without worrying about potentially having their online activities used against them or being, tracked or traced by folks who wish to undermine those movements. The Pursuance Project reached out to us. They wanted to have a couple different organizations do beta testing for them, and they chose Frontline Wellness as one of those 5 organizations. And they've been working with us to try and create some software that will be instrumental in our ability to manage volunteers and make sure that everybody stays safe if they're working in the field and emergencies happen. So that's an ongoing project, and we're really excited to be involved. We have a series of coordinated trainings and medic and wellness trainings that we've conducted. Lisa, if you're on and you want to talk a little bit about that, you can go ahead and start.
I am on, but for some reason my video is just not functional. So you've got puppies. But in San Francisco, we teamed up with the Veterans Building and a couple of veterans organizations there and held a training for first responders and had some positive feedback from that. And Joel spent, Joel actually was there. I was in Europe at the time we made all of these connections. So Joel maybe might want to talk about what it was like to be there.
I think Joel is still having some trouble joining. Are you there, Joel? I think he's not on right now.
Well, we did actually, we did actually have some positive feedback from the people who came, and we still have some archived video from the event that eventually we will get posted.
Okay, great. Robin, do you want to talk a little bit about our ongoing projects, starting with the mental health series that you're working on?
Yes, another idea that we have created is to create a series of webinars, different topics around mental health. So I started with one on how to help someone who's experiencing a panic attack. And our goal is to have it in Spanish with English subtitles. So I created the video and I'm working on transcribing it so that we can have English subtitles as well. And then from there, we'll continue to create more based on the needs of the community and what mental health topics would be most helpful for people.
That's awesome. We're excited for it. Sterling, do you want to talk a little bit more about our commitment to cybersecurity?
Sure, but before I do, I just would like to let people know that if they're watching this live and they have any questions, there is a chat on the upper right-hand side of the audience view on YouTube, and I'm watching that, looking for questions. Also, you can send us questions during this live broadcast at goo.gl/slides/M9HMX8. I've also put that into the notes on the audience view at YouTube. So moving on to talk about cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is very important when we're dealing with vulnerable people in general. When we're talking about activists, are basically targeted for both government and non-governmental groups, corporate groups that may want to stop them from whatever they're doing. We need to make sure that your information is safe and secure, that if you're connecting with us to get healthcare, mental health care, that your information isn't leaking. So we're taking every precaution that we can, but we're also taking the opportunity to train activists about cybersecurity so that they can protect themselves. One of the things that happens for a lot of activists is that they end up getting either so paranoid about what's happening with their phone or the risks of somebody breaking into their digital life, that becomes a mental health problem itself. So being able to find a balance is also a mental health issue. So to that end, we've been doing trainings, including one-on-one trainings, and I've been writing for the International Center for Nonviolent Conflict. You can see that at nonviolentconflict.org about cybersecurity issues for activists. And also tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern, we're going to be having a short training as part of this annual general meeting, a short training about HIPAA compliance, but also beyond HIPAA compliance, things that you should know about digital security if you're providing services to activists and really other vulnerable people as well. Frontline uses encrypted email. We use encrypted tools for all of our board meetings and when we text to each other. And we're always working at finding ways to have our communication isn't intended to be public, like obviously this is intended to be public, but our private communications, we want to keep them private as possible, 100% encrypted, encrypt all the things, and controlled as much as possible by ourselves rather than, you know, living in the Google sphere or on an, you know, AWS, Amazon Web Service, out in the cloud, because the cloud is just another word for somebody else's computer. So Joel is not on the call, but Bree, would you like to tell us about the companion guide to the definitive text on nonviolent movements?
Sure. I can't speak too much about the entire companion guide, but as part of that, we have been working hard on a section that will cover various topics and guidance for various topics in public health trends and kind of what are the best practices and things that will apply specifically to our specific population. So these guidelines so far are based on what has already been established and published by other major global health organizations. A lot of them, of course, use overlapping or very similar guidelines as far as, you know, waterborne and foodborne illnesses. So like water and sanitation, which are probably at the core of any kind of health issues for major encampments. We also hope to provide guidelines for violence prevention, mental health, and kind of extreme weather conditions that they might have to endure in an encampment. So hopefully we will be releasing one new guideline every quarter or faster, but there's a lot that goes into these, and we're really trying to do them the best we can and make them very useful, and also make them presented in such a way that they will be welcomed and embraced by our target population and not kind of shunned as a kind of authoritarian document that's being shoved down their throats. So just watch out for those. They'll be posted on our website as they are released.
I just want to jump in because Joel used the question and answer tool on the slides to say that he'd just like to note that Taggart Long, our training director, conducted a 2-day first aid CPR training in San Francisco in April. And he's also conducted a training in February in Salt Lake City at a Frontline workshop organized by Nina.
Well, I think that wraps up the portion of our meeting today dedicated to our accomplishments over the past year. Did anybody have anything to add or anything else they wanted to go over?
So
All right.
I'm just double checking. I don't see any further questions. After this is over, people can still post questions in the comments for the video, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. And we hope to see you tomorrow for the live presentation of what our goals for the future are and where we're going. This first year has been pretty amazing, getting Frontline Wellness up and running and getting our 501c3 just a few weeks ago in pretty much record time. And we're looking forward to what comes next. And we hope that you'll be involved. If you're not a member already, please come to our website at frontlinewellness.org. That's just Frontline Wellness, no spaces, .org. And you can find out there how to become a member and how to get involved. Thanks very much.